singing his song. All the little birds on Jaybird Street love to hear the robin go tweet, 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 rockin' robin, tweet, tweet, rockin' robin.
Welcome to Life is Good. I'm Heather McHugh, your ever-loving hostess, and guess who we have today? Somebody you probably haven't met because he doesn't live around here. But we flew together for, I don't know how many flights way back in the day when JetBlue first got an E190. We'll talk about that. His name is Ken Schulte, Captain Ken Schulte. He just retired from JetBlue at a very early age, voluntarily. And we'll find out about that, too. So, hi, Ken.
Hi, how are you?
I've never been better, thank you. How are you?
Excellent, excellent.
You know, a little bit of history. You graduated the first class to fly the Embraer 190, better known as the E190, made in Brazil. And JetBlue was the first airline to buy into that particular aircraft, so we broke it in.
Yeah.
And I was your flight attendant with multiple other flight attendants. We had 2 flight attendants per flight, but I was always somewhere behind you. We were learning how to fly that thing. So you loved it.
Yeah. You know, JetBlue has, you know, it sounds corny, but they have this value called fun.
Yeah.
And gosh, did we have a lot of fun on that airplane. The thing I loved about it the most was like nobody really knew all the little nuances. There were no 190 nerds out there that were like, you know, trying to tell you how we were just all figuring it out together.
Yeah, and we called it the E180 because it kept going back to the gate. Yeah. we'd get out on the tarmac, and then some light would come on, and we'd have to go back and try again. But we had a blast with the customers too.
Yeah, I think the crews were where the real value of the whole thing was. It's like the people that you work with, and you know, they just make it a joy. Some do. Now, you know, there's always those that don't. But you know, you were always great. I remember just having a good time and being able to let my hair down, so to speak, when we fly. Because
that was great because there's one thing about pilots. At JetBlue, we were at the beginning of the company, we were like a family, and I that's not to take anything away from real families, but we were really good together, and we cooperated and we encouraged. And what I found when I flew the other plane, the A320, we get a lot of, even not so much in the early days, but towards the end, there was quite a bit of arrogance in the pilot situation and separation of pilot and flight attendant, you know, but not a lot compared to the other airlines, I'll bet you. But,
well, you know, I've got this funny thought on that, and I've always said this. I said the E190 crews were really like family.
Yeah.
Whereas on the Airbus, it was business.
That's right.
And I think that's what makes the difference, or what made the difference. If you ask a lot of in-flight crews, they're like, oh yeah, the 190 guys are great. I'm not saying they're better than Airbus guys, because I actually turned into an Airbus guy. But I think it's all in how you treat it and what your angle is on going to work. I mean, none of us wants to be on a 4-day trip, you know, staying in places that we don't want to stay. So you might as well make the best of it.
Mm-hmm. But E190 didn't go to the exotic places right away.
Not really. One of my favorite memories. Is when you would call up on the PA and you would say, "Now listen, boys, I can hear you laughing in row 5."
Yeah, it was always great, real laughter, and the customers felt that too. The E190, for those folks who don't know what it's configured as, it's 2 and 2 seats on either side, and only 100 customers aboard. So as for me, on a 37-minute flight to DC or to Boston or Pittsburgh or whatever we were going, I could get to know every single one of those customers because it was 2 and 2. And we were having such a blast that they wanted to get to know why it was so much fun. I tell them, well, it's because we got up in the air this time. Yeah. Anyway, you know, I was inspired to go into the airlines because I've had a love affair with aviation since the age of 3. But what's your deal on inspiration? You're doing something big with that now.
Well, you know, it's interesting as you get older. you kind of think through all of that. And, I remember sitting down with my dad, and I was only 17 years old, trying to figure out, hey, can we do this airline thing? We didn't know anybody. We didn't have anybody to talk to. It was just me and my dad at the dinner table, just writing stuff down and trying to work it out. And I didn't even really know if I was inspired until I got a ride in a 172. It was a little Cessna in a grass strip in the middle of nowhere in Michigan. And my dad was in the back seat, and the guy turned around to my dad, and he was letting me fly, and he goes, he's a natural.
He's a natural. Yeah.
And then I just was like, I think I could do this. And that's really, I didn't even really know what inspiration was, to be honest with you, because you grow up in a small town. There's not a lot to like chase after or have mentors in your life. And so it's just kind of like fake it till you make it and figure out what you're good at. And I'm a big fan of that. Like, figure out who are you, and then bring that to wherever you're going.
Yes, sir.
A lot of people don't even know how well do you know yourself? And I think that's the whole thing. When JetBlue interviews pilots, they don't put them in the simulator. They want to know, what's this person made of? What are they about? Now, they ask some hokey HR questions, but I think that's, in the end, that's what they're looking for. It's like, what are you made of? What's on your mind? What inspires you? Because
that was a Dave Neeleman way. And every airline he started, WestJet, us, Azure, and now he's doing Breeze. I envy the new airlines he's bringing to the fore, because before big corporations take over a man like that, our values were what we were, and we were there for safety, caring, integrity, passion, fun, values. And we our interviews, I had the 17-page written interview, then a 20-minute phone call, then an 8-hour interview in New York with 35 other people.
Really?
And game playing, and they were just watching us. They had flight attendants all over the room posted to watch who was cooperating with who. And by the time we finally got to training, which is the story in itself, we felt like we knew each other because we were all cut from the same cloth. And I think you're so right there. We get to know ourselves, our better selves, working for a company like that, because they do bring out the best in us. They expect it, so we live up to that expectation. And so what else are you doing with inspiration? Because have you worked it into your business?
Oh yeah, I've worked it into the business. When I first started this business, it was just kind of something fun to do.
Oh, tell us about it.
Well, Airspeed Junkie, if you go on, it's a website that sells gifts and personal items that are all aviation themed.
I love it. I swear. Folks, you're going to see this all underneath Ken's body right now. We're going to put it. And you'll go there and you'll just want to buy everything, even though you might not be a consumer. If you love airlines or anything to do, some of them are hilarious, and some of them are nostalgic, and some of them are practical.
Well, everything out there right now is like, you got these big websites, the 900-pound gorillas, I call them, but they don't make anything. They buy their stuff, they bring it in from China or bring it in from whatever vendor, and then they sell it. And I kind of stumbled upon this by accident. I figured out, if you make something, it, right? If you're an expert in the industry and you're putting together something and somebody wants something, let's say like something with the Airbus 320, you're like, well, I know that airplane, I fly that airplane, and I know the difference between the 320 and the 330. Right away, you get some attention. But it's great when you I found that when you take something like we make our flagship product is this retirement plaque that we make for guys that are retiring. And when we make it, there's something magical about putting a person's name across the top of anything. If it's a captain upgrade plaque, if it's a retirement plaque, if it's a personalized, even like a cutting board, you put somebody's name on it, something happens. It just changes everything. And it's like, this is valuable now. People, they're just transformed when they see their name on something.
And they'll cherish it.
Yeah, I don't even know how to explain it. And so we started making these plaques, and then we started getting a lot of attention from actually wives and daughters that were buying things for their dads or husbands that were retiring, and it just spread around the whole community. And guys are like, "Where do you get that?" And I get emails, and I think this is the difference between us and a guy that's sitting at a desk in China is like, I get emails, I get phone calls.
Dear Ken.
People are in tears. Like, I can't believe that you made this, or that your company does this. And it like how, and it just kind of blows my mind. I always stop and listen to that, because it's like, that's a little tiny piece. Like, I got to participate in some Delta captain's career. I just did one the other day, 42 years. I'm like, I got a little itty bitty sliver of that. And how amazing is that? And I remember when I was about 27 and sitting in a bus coming from the Pittsburgh airport going to the parking lot. And there was a Delta guy on there, and I was sitting with my captain, and I didn't say Delta, did I?
Yes, you did.
A captain from another airline, and he wouldn't talk to us because we
you were young?
No, because we weren't in the union. And I'm like, wow, has time changed? Now I got guys that from every airline, I mean, ordering stuff, and they're like, this is great. And so that's what really inspires me. It's like, I want to make things that make a difference to people like we do. I know it sounds hokey, like we make shirts.
I love them.
But we accidentally stumbled on this audience of people that were like in the Vietnam and the Korean War era that love these old nostalgia F-4 Phantoms and B-52 bombers and 87. And they're not pilots, which is the cool part, right? They're not pilots. They're enthusiasts. They were guys that were working on the decks of aircraft carriers, and they were based in some goofy place in Vietnam, and they were in the trenches, and it takes them back.
And not that they want to go back physically, but
right.
But it does, if they can reach that point in their healing, then you've helped them with that too.
And then there's this other thing that I always say is, if you're talking to a pilot, there's not one pilot that doesn't want to look at something with his airplane on it.
Definitely.
Whether it's a picture, a model, a plaque, a sign, if it's got, whatever airplane that he's on it, that's what, we all have a man cave. We all have a special spot that we like. And so I've kind of rolled all that in there together, and it's like, it's inspiration. It's fun. It's a way to give back to the community. It's also good business. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It's you have to build something right that you can pass to the next generation. So there's 700 products on there. They're all made, just about all of them, except for a few. They're all made in house, and that's.
May I interrupt you and ask you, in house? Is it in your house?
Well, it's in a shop. It's in our shop, and
Are you in the shop now?
I'm in one of the production areas. Yeah, it's kind of a.
How many employees do you have? Pardon?
I said it's actually clean today, but it's.
Yes, well, I expected that, kid. I expected nothing less. I expect perfection. I have a question. How many people are doing this with you?
I have a small staff, real small, just 3 people. But I also have, I can't do everything. So, I mean, I have a separate third-party vendor that handles all our Facebook ads, and then one for Google. And then we have a graphic design team that's in Colorado. And, I basically manage all of that just from my desk.
Where are you living now?
I'm still in Florida, in Orlando, Florida area. Yeah. And so I guess if you add all the people up, it'd be a little bit bigger, but business doesn't really run that way now that we're a global economy. And so you find people, it's taken me forever. I've fired more people than I've hired just because
Really?
you can't find somebody that doesn't want to take shortcuts. And so, yeah, it's good. We're growing. I think this year we're going to probably outgrow this particular spot and move on. We had a commercial building at one time, and we'll probably get back to that. But
Why don't you ask JetBlue University if you can have the lobby or something like that?
well, actually, JetBlue is one of my biggest customers
Well, of
because
course, JetBlue is one of your biggest customers. And,
well, that
and
was by accident as well. We just put together something, and then everybody was like, "Where did you get this?" And they were like, "Hey, we got it from Airspeed Junkie," and the guy that just owns it happens to work here, and so he has his finger on the pulse, which I think is important. But now we're getting that, slowly over time from all the airlines, and so we'll expand as we need to. But I don't want to get so big.
well, that's a small town boy talking about a small town business that's going big, but you want to keep the personality.
Yeah,
And when you said you weren't union, JetBlue pilots did end up going union, as did the
Yeah.
flight attendants. I fought that, by the way.
yeah.
I fought the union. I did not want, and they got in on their third attempt to get to the flight attendants, and I was
Yeah,
mortified.
it changes things, that's for sure,
Yeah,
even on that pilot side.
The pilots, they had a little issue with their insurance at one point, and I don't know whether the union actually helped you or not. Maybe it did, but I know it hasn't done a thing for the flight attendants I've spoken
I
to.
think it's I think it's all on who you ask. There's
Yeah.
some guys that are like, "Well, the union's the best thing ever," and then there's some guys that are like, "It's right up there with Dr. Evil."
Exactly, Doctor. What is it? How does my daughter does it? She does this.
Yeah, exactly.
Evil. All I need is a cat with no fur, and I could be Doctor Evil.
Yeah.
But no, I don't know. Anyway, can we talk about the gutting of the FAA, Ken?
Sure.
For those of you who haven't followed aviation news lately, the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, has lost a lot of its head honchos, and we need them, and we just need them, and it leaves me wondering what's next. What do you think?
I've had this revelation in the last couple of months at work, and I've noticed this in airlines, in companies, in government, any bigger, any company that gets really big, they lose this ability where the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing.
True.
And so with the FAA, they will tell you they are so behind the times as far as like expanding their airspace, hiring enough controllers.
Definitely.
And it's hard to watch sometimes because you think when you're in business, when you have a problem or an opportunity and you're like, we got to get past this hurdle, you pull out all the stops and you come up with these creative ideas on how we're going to get to this next level so that we can have a way forward.
Yeah.
Well, the FAA is not like that, or if they are, they're not portraying that. And you don't hear things like, well, we have this tremendous controller shortage,
Oh,
but you don't hear anybody coming up with these out of the box ideas like, well, it takes 2 years to train a controller. So how can we make that take less time?
well, it's 56 years, the aging out.
Yeah.
They can expand that. It would take an act of Congress 1 second to just say, well, we're not going to have a
Yeah.
finite.
So I think you can go crazy trying to figure that out.
Yeah, make it easy. You can cut out all the simple things, just congressional power saying, let them stay on a few more years, and then we won't have such a deficit.
I think it would be a part of that. I think, there's a lot of moving parts, which you and I are probably never going to understand that.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what's going to happen, but I know that I don't have to listen to it.
Yeah. For those of you watching who haven't heard, it's national news. Ken retired. What, 10 days ago, Ken?
Huh?
You retired about 10 days ago?
Yeah, last Friday.
And you got the great big hosing down of your aircraft at the end?
Hosing down. Yeah, I'll send you that video.
Did you cry?
I tell you, it was hard, man. I had to bite my lip a couple times because my family was there, and of quite a few people showed up.
If I'd known, I would have definitely sent flowers because I don't fly anywhere anymore. I barely drive to the airport. But I'm really proud of you for living that, for working that long, living this long. But you were so young to retire.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in it for 42 years, chasing an airplane for 42 years. I tell guys this. This is what I tell guys. I go, look, you're at the top of your game. You're making tons of money, but you can always make more money. You can't make more time.
Exactly.
And it's like, this is not a healthy industry. And I'm not trying to discourage anybody that wants to go into it.
Well, fatigue and radiation and fatigue, radiation, stress.
Looks like I picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
I'm still having occasional nightmares about not being able to get to my gate.
I had one last night, and
What did you dream?
That I missed the flight, and I was supposed to work it, and then I woke up and I realized what's going on here. But it's the food. They have fume problems. There's scheduling. Airlines are becoming really smart. They're using AI, and they're making these schedules more and more productive. And a lot of guys don't realize it. They're not making it productive for you or me as a crew. They're making it productive for the airline. And
Can you give an example of that?
Well, they're going to squeeze as much into a trip as they possibly can. And what I was experiencing is I used to be able to fly a turn. I would start in the morning at my home base, fly to, let's say, New York, and then come home, and then I would be done.
Yeah.
And that would pay, X amount of hours, let's say 6 hours. Now they will add another leg in, and you get the same amount of pay and put it into a multi-day pairing. And it's almost like you're working for free almost.
It feels like it sometimes.
Yeah. And it's and now you got to stay in a place that you don't want to stay, eat the food that, sleep on a pillow that you don't like. And, the list goes on.
And not to mention that the cleaning ladies are housekeeping.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, I got to bed at 4:00 in the morning and you're housekeeping at 9 or 8. Didn't you read the sign? No need.
Yeah. It's a young person's game for sure.
Yeah. And I was 68 when I retired, and I would not have retired had it not been for COVID, but I count my lucky stars right now. Just the other day, I was in my room and I happened to see my suitcase. And I was in my pajamas, and I went to the gym. I came home, I put my pajamas back on, went to my art studio, and I just happened to see my suitcase. I'm thinking, oh my God, can you imagine me going to the gym and doing what I used to do, work out, take a shower, put on my uniform, work 12 hours, and then do it all again in another town practically.
Yeah.
So, I loved it so much, but I'm glad I'm not doing it at this time.
New chapter, right?
New chapter, totally.
You're doing great.
I remember when you started Airspeed Junkie, you asked if I'd write for you.
Yeah.
And yet we couldn't figure out where my writing would fit into your business, and we never did get together on that.
That's changed as well, because we have a blog, and I do most of the articles on there, and I'm really into doing some video as well. I pitched a captain upgrade class, and the whole thing is on the site.
Nice.
And it's really kind of about giving back, and some of the tools that we have that are available if you kind of open the lid of the box. The course that I wrote was basically, the whole captain's authority has changed.
Leadership. Let's talk about your leadership, because you have your own take on that.
Changed, and it's guys are well, they want to have, a traditional older guy like myself. They're used to having total control over everything. When we push, what we do, where we go, what altitude, what's the weather, we're going to divert here, there, and everything. And that's all been taken away.
Yeah.
And people, there are a lot of people that struggle with that. And I'm like, hey man, you're missing the boat. You don't have to make those decisions. You are free to do something else. And that something else is to have some influence. And so I wrote that that course just kind of based on what I was seeing in the industry. And I'll tell you a story if I have time to
Yeah,
tell.
you have time because I'm trying to follow you on this. I think I lost you there a little bit. So tell the
Well,
story.
so influenced, I think, is the very biggest, not like superpower, but like opportunity that
Definitely.
you have when you upgrade. Now, you don't get a lot of it as a first officer, although I've seen first officers that can inspire much better than captains. But you have this opportunity because when you upgrade to captain, you're automatically assumed to be the guy or the gal that has all the answers. But it's really about setting the tone, and it's about inspiring people. So
Totally.
one day we were sitting at the gate in Kennedy. I don't even know. You might have been on this flight. It was the first revenue flight from Kennedy to Boston.
It might have been me.
It might have been. I don't recall. We had a whole group of like 12-year-old kids in the back, and they were all wearing the same color shirt, and they were like a aviation club enthusiast type thing, and they got a ticket for $25. And so I saw them back there, and I'm like, hey, what's with all the shirts? And, they were talking, and different guys were like, oh, we belong to this club. So when we got to where we were going, I pulled them all together, and I said, come on, let's look around. I showed them the cockpit, showed them, we took some pictures, and here's how this works, and here's how this whole thing comes together, shook everybody's hands, talked to them, and, try to figure out what makes them, what they're interested in, right? Because
Inspire them.
yeah, it's the next generation.
Yeah.
So that's fine. We go back to Kennedy, I go home, and that's the end of it. Well,
yeah.
20 years later, Christmas Day, I get this email, and it was, hey, you don't know me. I was that kid sitting in row 12 with the camera, and I was on your flight, and I was so inspired. And he said, I took 1 million pictures, and you were so nice to us. And he said, I decided to go into aviation. And I'm reading this, and I'm like, oh,
I know.
And so he's like, and I did it. I got all my ratings. I got hired at JetBlue.
Yeah. Who is it?
As a 190 FO, and I'm like,
oh, sorry, I'm not supposed to bang the table.
I about lost it. I'm like, he's like, he goes, I hope you don't mind me emailing you. He goes, I took a picture, and on the center column was the release, and it had your name on it. I blew it up. And he says, and I looked you up in the company, and he goes like, the guy's still here. And so he emails me, and I about fell over. So I typed it over to the chief. I go, hey, look at the story. And he turns it over to HR, and HR calls me and says, hey, can we put you guys together?
Yeah.
And if you say, yeah, we'll send a film crew to go with you. And I said, man, that'd be awesome. And so this kid comes down, and I mean, no, he's not a kid. He's this dude. I mean, he's huge and muscular and good looking and just awesome pilot. And we spent an hour before, and then we flew, and it was like coming home.
15 years ago, when you were a teen, what was it about Ken that kind of caught your attention, that inspired you?
Sure, yeah. So Ken and I, we spoke about the experience we had 14 years ago, and back then I wasn't really sure what really went into getting an airplane on the ground, quickly turning it, and then getting it back in the air. And having been a passenger and then coming to the front 14 years ago, they were clearly busy. Ken and his co-captain, they were clearly busy up there, but Ken took the time to speak with me and the group of teenagers that I was traveling with, and I think just by taking a few moments out of his busy schedule that day, just to speak with us, kind of tell us about the aircraft and show us around, I think that's what really had an impact on my life. That he took the time out to really talk talk to us, and that's something that I carry forward as a first officer here at JetBlue. And any chance I get, if there's a young person come on the aircraft or someone who seems even a bit interested in flying, I invite them up and take the time out to do the same and essentially pay it forward.
Then they put it up on the website, and I got lots of email and all that. The thing is, I was like, listen, everybody thinks that this story is about me. The story is not about me. It's about the guy. It's about Michael. This is his story that I got to have that little itty bitty piece in. And it extends into this business. It's like, okay, I figured this out. We can lead people. We inspire them just by taking an interest, by asking questions, by being personable. And it makes a difference in our time here, right? I mean, we all want our tombstone to say, I made a difference, but nobody tells you how to do it.
No, but I'll tell you, I watched you in action. I've seen you in action, and that's probably why I contacted you to be on the show. And I haven't contacted any other JetBlue pilot to do this.
Well, I appreciate that.
You left a great impression upon me, and you set a very high standard. And I measured other pilots by your personality, and when you were flying with Christian, and the humility that you showed as a pilot, because flight attendants respect pilots, of course, but we want to be treated as equals.
Yeah.
Equals, but different.
Yeah.
And you had that down pat, and all of us felt it. And it's not surprising to me at all that you inspired someone else to go into aviation, because he probably thinks that all pilots are as nice as you are.
He's probably got a different story now, right?
Yeah, it's like, sorry to burst your bubble, but you're going to meet some you're going to meet some others. But pilots always treated me they were perfect gentlemen to me all the time, JetBlue pilots.
Great.
And I always felt very respected, and it helps to be my age, because it was a wonderful atmosphere for me to be treated like a lady every single day.
Yeah. It's funny when you retire. I don't know if you had this experience, but it's interesting what people remember about you. Because they tell you, and I got 100 texts and comments on a Facebook post, and I'm like, really? I don't remember doing that or saying that, or I'm just trying to make a living and be good to my people, along the way, and that's basic humanity. One.
Well, that's why Airspeed Junkie is going to do well too.
I think so. I mean, I hope so, but
well, it's already doing well, but it's going to do better, because you bring yourself into every piece.
Yeah.
And I love the humor of some of those things that you put out there.
What, the bald guys matter luggage tag that I have on my bag? I get a lot of comments on that, but I'm like,
well, I watch. What is it? It's from that movie, Good Morning Vietnam. Only it's love to wake up to the smell of jet fuel.
Jet fuel in the morning. Yeah, it's very popular.
It's the first thing that caught my eye. I'm like, oh, I get that. What is that? JP3 or JP1 fuel?
JP4 and JP5, and guys will argue over that. It's hilarious to listen to. It's like they're just a derivative of one another, and the older one was JP4, I believe, and then
and I actually do love that smell.
Yeah, it is does have. It's funny how that is, isn't it? It's weird.
I grew up in Montreal, and of course, I was always at an airport doing anything, and flying a lot. And I was everybody's co-pilot.
Yeah.
On small aircraft, and I'd take my bicycle to the airport, and I would smell that exhaust. I'd smell that fuel, and I knew I'd be getting close to the airport, and it's like an adrenaline rush for me.
Sure.
So the heck with a Brute, and what is the other kind of and what other kind of things? Old Spice? Oh, just drop some JP4 behind your ear, big boy.
That's old school stuff right there, I'll tell you.
You had me at oil.
That's hilarious. That's the kind of fun that we have. I think that's what makes it great. I mean, look, how long has it been since we've talked? And we're just like picking it up like we've,
Maybe 12 years,
yeah, probably.
maybe
At
10 or
least.
12 years.
Yeah.
Because I've been gone from JetBlue since 2020. So this is 2025 and before
And I
that.
haven't seen you
And
forever.
I did the ultimate E190 backstab. I went to Mint.
Oh, did you really?
I did. I went to Mint. I only flew first class, and it's like Paris first class international. I just did first class, and I loved it because I'm a born servant.
Yes, you are.
And
But you have a good personality for it.
oh, thanks. But I would also run to the back and take care of everybody in the back when my number two would come up and take care of Mint people because they say there's no difference.
There is.
But there's a tremendous difference, and we didn't have curtains or anything. JetBlue's very open-minded, open-ended. That we said one plane, two services, but we didn't separate. We never said first class, second class. It was always Mint or back of the plane. I don't know what they called it, but Mint or regular or something. I can't remember. But
I don't remember either.
you get 159 people on the plane, and as they're leaving, they all hug you.
Oh, wow. That's huge.
That's JetBlue.
Yeah.
And some of the people would say, well, somebody would go by and hug me, and then somebody would follow. And it turned out, that scene, we might put it into this, but that scene where the woman on Airplane movie wouldn't stop screaming. She was panicking, so the flight attendant grabbed her and slapped her, and then everybody was lining up behind her with that hammer and an axe and a baseball bat to slap her to get her to be quiet.
Yeah.
I've got to get out of here. Calm down. Get a hold of yourself.
Stewardess, please let me handle this.
I've got to get...
Calm down. Now get back to your seat. I'll take care of this. Calm down. Calm down. Get a hold of yourself.
Doctor, you're one on the phone. Everything's going to be all right.
Well, it was like that with me. They'd hug me, and then 159 people said, well, everybody's hugging her. I guess I'll hug her too.
Yeah.
She's an old lady. I'll hug her. But that's what JetBlue. We all got hugs all the time.
Yeah. That's neat. That's what makes it good. When you have good synergy like that.
Yeah.
I missed that a little
I do
bit.
too.
But it's only been a week. So ask me a couple weeks, couple months maybe, and see where I'm going with it.
It's funny. The first year was torture for me. I missed everybody so much. I missed everybody. I missed the job. I missed flying. I missed everything. And then the second year, I tried to convince myself that I was okay. I'm okay. I'm really busy. I've got my life. I've got 3 businesses. It's like I can get by without flying. And then the third year came, fourth, fifth, and now I'm in my 5th year. And it was just last Sunday when I was looking at I actually said to myself for the first time last Sunday, I'm glad I'm not flying.
Wow.
It takes a long time to transition out of this industry.
It really does, because you're taking your time back. And for me, it's like 42 years of putting your time into somebody else's hands. And now it's like, oh, I don't have to go anywhere.
I know.
What a weird,
Can you fly this plane and land it?
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
I know. And I sent you that video yesterday. It's a 22-minute documentary
I
on
watched it.
farming.
Yeah.
So and now you know why flight attendant was so easy for me.
Yeah.
And that I wouldn't have any trouble if somebody got sick. Oh, I'll clean that up.
I cracked up because my uncle's a dairy farmer, and when you were standing in the barn, I saw the tail go up, and I'm like, I know what's gonna happen.
I bet you never did this on a plane.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, put on your blue glove. Okay. We had so much fun.
He did ask me once about if you thought they were gonna increase the retirement age in the pilot group.
That's right. The aging out at 65 is not what I applaud.
Well, there's a great argument there with guys that are like, I feel like I'm in my prime and I'm sharp enough that I could go to 67 if I was chasing the money and the dream and all that. And I feel like, hey, as we get older, we get better as managers and maybe even better as people. So I can see that. But then there's some guys you fly with and, they're 50 and I'm like, dude, you need to go home. So I don't know what, I know the union is fighting it,
It's an individual thing.
Yeah, it is. It
People
really
can still retire at 65 if they so choose, but if they don't have to, then that
Yeah,
wasn't
and there's a lot of guys. Their thing. They're only there to make money. That is it. And
it's
I'm
funny.
like, "Come on, don't you have a life?"
It's true. And I always worked minimum hours.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah, because I was homesick.
yeah,
I would drive out of my driveway in Vermont and I'd be so upset. And then I'd get to New York and I'd be really happy to be there, but I thought of Vermont all the time.
yeah.
And
Sure.
and my family, I have 2 kids and a grandson, and my children are 43 and 45 now.
Wow,
My grandson's going to be 21 next month.
no kidding.
Yeah, but that
Any
goes
interest in
quickly.
aviation?
Pardon?
Does he have any interest in aviation?
You know what I'm giving him for his 21st birthday?
Tell me.
Flying. I'm giving him flying.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yes, and I've already told him so that he can think about it. And
Good. Yeah, plant that seed, right? You know, and
Plant that
if it
seed.
doesn't work.
I'll say, "Hey, Shay, guess what?
Yeah.
You're taking me somewhere." But
My son was interested real briefly, and then he took a ride, and I tried to stay out of it. And somebody came back. I'm like, "Well, what do you think?" He goes, "I don't know." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Okay, totally
But-
fair." You know,
How many children do you have?
I just have 2.
That's all I have.
Yeah, that's plenty.
I wanted 4, but I
Oh,
guess,
did you?
but then, or maybe even 10. Then somebody would like me every single day.
That's funny.
But no, I like having 2 at this point. But and I
Two
like my kids. I really like them,
It's,
and I like my grandson. So,
it's amazing when your kids grow up to be good people. You know, it's a job well done as far as I'm concerned. You've created these little humans, and you've given them, they've seen every little angle of you, and then they turned out good anyway.
Yeah, and I said I was a single mother, and I was a stay-at-home mother because all my businesses were at home, and so I screwed them up all by myself.
Yeah,
And I take full blame for the bad things, and if there's any credit at all, I say, well, you can give that to anybody you want, but a little bit over here wouldn't hurt.
yeah, but your kids can think optimistically, right?
I hope so. Oh, you remember that?
Of course I do. They that's probably very healthy that they're able to kind of have both sides, a view of both sides, which I think is missing today. People get narrow-mindedly focused, and they don't look at all the opportunities.
Well,
I would.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, every time we had a bid that would come out, even though I never enjoyed being based in JFK, I would always take a look at it just to make sure that nothing changed and that it was still the clear choice of not going back there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's healthy when we're not so set in our ways that we can't look at other things.
True. So you were based in Orlando the last few years?
Yeah, been based here for like almost 20 years.
Yeah.
Driving to work.
That's not bad.
That's
not bad.
awesome.
Do you know that JetBlue stopped flying to Burlington 2 years after I retired? So I would have had a tough time getting to work.
Yeah, I saw that.
And, I did a public service announcement and tried to get everybody, and our congressmen and legislators went to Robin, who was our CEO, and he said, okay, we'll start again in October.
Yeah.
And then I wrote him a thank you letter. Thank you, Robin, for doing this. I can't wait. October doesn't come fast enough for my friends. And think of the commuters that were, hurting. And I mailed it Valentine's Day. And that afternoon, they announced he was leaving because of health issues. and it never came back to Burlington after that. And Joanna Garrity's running it now. I haven't written to her, but we used to talk often. And I don't know how she's doing.
She's
How
doing
is
great, actually.
Pardon?
She's doing great.
That's what I like to hear.
Yeah, I got the pleasure of getting to know her at a conference last year, and she's a smart lady.
Oh,
She
but she's an
surrounded
attorney.
herself- Yeah. What? I'm sorry?
She's an attorney. I
Yeah.
really, when I talked with her, I always felt on an equal basis.
Yeah.
She listened, and I listened to her, and I gained great wisdom from her on occasion.
Yeah.
So that was
Anybody
good
that
to know.
starts a conversation with, I feel like I've known you for 20 years, that's a good start,
Yeah.
She surround herself with really smart people, and they have a plan, and they're open about it, and it was way more encouraging than her predecessor, just because I think that she has a vision that is not just so self-centered, like this is the box that we're in.
Yeah. Well, he came from British Airways. Robin came from British Airways, and they had a different atmosphere there. But I loved Robin. I mean, I thought he was great, but I didn't really follow how he was running the business because as long as my planes were taking off and I was doing okay, I didn't really follow how the company was going. It was good for me when I was there. Things changed.
Yeah.
You know what? Speaking of retirement, I think we have to close this, unfortunately, because it's our time. But Ken, you gave me so much joy when I worked for JetBlue. And if anybody's watching this and they're thinking of going into aviation, follow Ken's example because he's the quintessential gentleman. He makes not only the customers, but everybody on the crew feel superior and welcome and cared for, and he's safe. This is what a pilot should be and could be. And even if my grandson ever watches this show, I doubt it. It's not cool. If my grandson ever watches this show, I'll send a message to Shay. Shay, this is the kind of gentleman you will be if you become a pilot, a good pilot, and a good man.
I appreciate that. And
I appreciate you, Ken.
right back at you. It was a joy. Let's stay in touch. I'd love to see what you're doing, and thank you for the opportunity just to share some of what's in my brain.
Well, I'd love you to come fly into EFD. Are you flying a small aircraft now?
No, but I am going to be traveling on my own terms, so don't be surprised if we
Okay, well, I live 3 miles from the Northeast Kingdom International Airport.
Okay, great.
And I have enough room in my house for you and your wife and your son if he comes.
Okay.
And it's a little house. It's a hobbit house, but it's spread. The walls seem to enlarge when I get a crowd in there.
Good.
It's magical. But I'll pick you up at the airport, bring you all over to my place. I'm on the bike path, Lake Memphremagog, 32-mile-long lake. Bring your passport because we're right on the Canadian border. And so far, we're still allowed to go up there. I'm Canadian, but things are happening governmentally that aren't pretty between our two countries. But come ahead.
Okay.
We'll take good care of you, and I'll introduce my grandson to you.
Awesome.
Thank you, Ken.
You're welcome.
And thank you all for watching Life is Good. Mwah. See you next week, and I'll see you soon, Ken. Bye-bye.
There's no reason to become alarmed, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your flight.
By the way, is there anyone on board who knows how to fly a plane?